Right, our free lunch and learn for EOC and Talent Search Proposal Writing Workshop. Please put your questions in the Q&A. We've got Teresa here with us, who is been in Trio longer than I have because she went through Talent Search program before she started working for Trio. So literally Trio is in her blood. And we started, when I was, I think officially as professionals, you were a participant, Teresa, but I think together we started at the Boys and Girls Clubs
Yep.
in 1994, working there. So we're going to ask and find out how many Talent Search EOC or people that are looking for funding for both are there. And, Teresa, I just wanted to ask you, we're talking here for the first time, I am getting readers' comments back slowly but surely from the SSS competition. And I don't know if you've seen any. Have you seen any readers' comments yet? Okay. Let me let you know that I'm getting them. I can tell on one proposal that the readers were told to look specifically in the evaluation plan. They said that there was not a defined cohort that was going to be evaluated for SSS. And I
Wow.
looked back on that language, and we did talk about the cohort of the students, annual. I guess it wasn't spelled out, but also about for graduation or graduation and transfer. We said the cohort of students, it was clearly stated, but it was just wasn't one reader, it was all three of them picked on that. So I'm thinking that they were told to pick on that.
Hmm.
And on another one, someone lost a point on a CPP because the strength said that the applicant clearly states this, 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 and this, and then the weakness was the applicant doesn't state clearly this, this, and this. So it contradicted itself. But the person still got funded because they were an ongoing program, but no new grants were funded initially. And so that tells me, it's going to be fierce competition. I'm waiting to get those readers' comments back like crazy. And so some of you out there that we worked on your SSS proposal with y'all, if you got a perfect score, great. But if you didn't get a perfect score and you're still around, great. But I'm like obsessed with trying to figure out what the pattern is. And the more we find out where people lost points, the more we can study and anticipate, what the readers will be told for this competition for Talent Search and EOC. So it's really, really important. If you've guys got good friends or colleagues that are SSS projects, and if they wouldn't mind sharing their readers' comments with y'all, please do so, because that's great insight on what the readers were told to look for and triggers and things that we need to be really good about. Teresa, so far, none of my clients have lost any points on the objectives. And I was worried about, the range, if it was not ambitious enough, but
Right.
it's knock on wood.
Ooh, that's good so far.
So I'm hoping so far, but it's taken a while. And people will say if they got a perfect score, great, you can keep your scores. It's if you didn't get a perfect score, but still got funded, because the cutoff was 128. I mean, no, so the cutoff was 113, but the highest you could score was 128. Sorry about that. The highest you could score was 128 if you had 15 points of prior experience, plus you had 105 on the SSS competition because it was worth 105. They had an extra section, plus 8 points for the CPPs, plus up to 15 points. That's where I'm getting that the highest possible you could score was the 128. Then the cutoff was 113 point 33.
Yeah. 3-3.
So you see, if you were a brand new applicant with no prior experience points, it was like going to be impossible to get funded. But now there's the second funding ban, which people are they're letting people know that they're on the funding ban, but I don't see a list, Teresa. Have you seen a list either?
No, they're just letting them know individually from what I understand.
So that's where the trickle, coming in. And one of my clients got canceled. So I don't know if you've run into anybody who's gotten canceled, Teresa. I don't think they even read the proposal. I'll be curious to see. But anyway, that's an ongoing story there. All right. So talent search or EOC, we've got 59% talent search, 24% EOC, and we've got people that are in both categories. Thank you all for participating in that. Appreciate that. The Google Drive link is going to be in the chat to the Lunch and Learn. And remember, all these videos are going to be posted on our YouTube channel. Let's look at some questions. I have my readers' comments from the grant I wrote for ACU. Well, Gayla, did you get a perfect score? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, But if you wouldn't mind, if you could take off, if you want to send them anonymously, or if you just want to copy and paste the scores, if any, that were lost. I mean, that would be awesome. And we're going to put that on our spreadsheet. We're developing a spreadsheet internally of all the points that we're taking off. So if we can see a pattern, Teresa, or some sort of, address that looking forward, if you would. Oh, okay. And they were correct. Oh, okay. Well, if you feel comfortable sharing that, if you want to send it to me and I'll post it anonymously or add that, I would love to see. Isn't that awful? I would love to see what it is, instead of your perfect score. I need to know because, I probably did it. I could do it again. I maybe was very lucky. And again, we wrote so many proposals, Teresa, where one of our new grants didn't get funded because they took the point off the cohort for the evaluation plan not being clearly stated. But guess what? That same narrative was across all the other older proposals and no one took a point off. It's the same exact narrative. So you see, must have been something about that panel or someone who was training or supervising those
Right.
readers.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And in some cases, they're all over the place. Because I was going to say, well, they took it easier on the newer people and took points off of the older grants, that were in existence. But I can't say that because I'm seeing numbers right now all across instances or situations that are just, there's no consistency right now. I only have a few. So hopefully when we get a lot, I'll be able to make a general assessment and say, you know what, from the ones that we were involved with, we see this pattern. I don't have enough to see a pattern. They're coming in and they're not making any sense right now. Don't you love it? So yeah, if you would, anybody out there who has any that would like to share, that would be great. Someone in the National Trio Directors Group on Facebook was concerned that they had a bad reader or an AI reader because they got 0 out of 8 points from one section and they had charts and data that was reviewed by multiple outsiders. Well, again, I don't know. I saw that post, Teresa. I don't know if you could have an AI reader. I'm sure that maybe I could see somebody who was reviewing maybe asking AI to review for them and come up with some things to look at. That could be, something going on. But I believe 0 out of 8 would be the objective section, I believe. And it's easy. I hate to say this, it's pretty easy to get 0 out of 8 points in the objective section if if the objectives were too high. So we kind of need more information about that. I would love to see I would love to talk to that person and ask to see what the reader said was a weakness. And I bet they either set their objectives too low or too high. Anyway, you never know. I mean, I haven't heard anything like that, Teresa. Have you, about using AI only to read the grants?
No, this is my first time hearing that. But that's definitely something that we're all looking out for.
Right, right. And I can see it. I mean, I can actually see someone using as a reader, reviewer, either looking at your question, sending it through something, and seeing if AI was on target and maybe wording it better or saying, can you point out any potential strengths or weaknesses here? Right? Possibly, possibly. But to use just AI on its own, probably not. So there's a little bit more to that story. Maybe they didn't deserve to lose all 8 points, but I've seen it happen if the writer was not detailed enough in the baseline, or confuse the reader by adding comparing bringing in more stuff from the needs section, like whatever the state or the national rate was, so it could confuse the reader. A bunch of things. So we kind of need to see the rest of the story, as they would say. What section would you like us to talk about today? Okay, I'm going to look at one more question, but what do you want to talk about? We're looking at need for project is running up there. We've got about just 5 of y'all. Let's get more folks interested and let us know what you want. This is your time. I don't ever have a set agenda, just some updates and just chit chatting until we get some questions answered. I know we've got quite a few folks. We need to know what you're interested in us talking about. Okay, okay, let's see how many. Okay, we still have half of y'all responding. Other half are just, come on, it's anonymous. There's no way to track it to you, okay? All right, so give you about a couple more seconds. Looks like the needs section by far is working out. So, okay, good. Well, then let's talk about the needs section. Let's end the poll and I'll share the results. I think we can do that. Okay, so share results. So 50% of y'all want to talk about the needs section. Makes sense because that's the first section that pops up. Don't forget, you want to do your budget real quick. That should take not very long because we don't have that much money. Let me take this question and we'll focus on the needs section. Demonstrate a commitment to minimize the dependence on student loans. The applicant reflects grant aid will be distributed in other areas of the project, in another area of the project narrative, but it does not discuss it here. The applicant does not describe how much aid will be distributed and how it will determine which students will receive it in the project narrative. Okay, grant funding is okay. Okay, there you go. There you go. Yeah, probably. That would be one of the things that should have been mentioned if it was talked about in the grant. Others who didn't have grant aid for SSS mentioned at all, it'd be tougher sell. So you could have had a stronger answer, but in fact, they penalized you for not bringing it up. So, okay, yeah, that's a pretty good one. Hopefully you still got funded, so that should be okay. We're an EOC and we're looking to potentially expand into another county. Larger population with no TRIO programs. Our host institution reached out to the community college in that county to ask if they would be interested in getting our support. The community college is a potential county, said no, they're set. Can one still write for that county if we get letters of commitment and or support from the other agencies or organizations in that county? Teresa, do you want to respond to this? It's kind of like talent search, you know, in a way. And I would just ask, are you wanting to write a separate EOC or it says that you're wanting to expand. So you're going to make it even more of a bigger target area. Our host institution has reached out to the community college to ask if they've been interested in getting our support.
Well, it seems that you don't necessarily, I don't know that you have to have the commitment of the community college unless you're trying to host it at their institution. Because EOC has multiple sites. You say it's a larger county, so that means that there's probably a higher population there. Um, I don't know that you, from what I understand, I don't know that you have to have the commitment of the community college, um, because you get to decide who you're partnering with EOC, just like with Talent Search. Yeah. So,
It,
um,
it,
yeah,
it would have been nice if they would have
yeah.
said yes, or maybe, I don't know if they're trying to write on their own for it. But my clue is that you said that our host institution, so you're a college, and I don't think it breaks it down this detailed in the applicant and community support for EOC like it does in Talent Search. But if you're a college, then it's not, let's put it this way, like Teresa said, it would have been nice to have their support, but unless the reader lives there, and usually they get readers that are not from the state, they would not know to bring it up and say, well, how come you're missing a letter of commitment from this college that's right up the street? So I wouldn't be too for real and say, we've reached out, there's no other service provided. You could say that that college doesn't offer the services, but you don't have to go into detail to say that they said, no, we're good. So you can still write for that county if you get letters of commitment support from the agencies or organizations there. That's perfectly, it would have been great to have their commitment, but you don't have to have their commitment. That's the way I see it, Teresa, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Their loss. If I want to add a school or county, do I need to gather information first or talk to the school first? I'm Talent Search. Ooh, no, you need to, before you invite anybody to this party called Talent Search, you need to make sure they have the stats to show need. Okay, because you can get them all worked up and excited about being part of the program, and then you have to come back and break their hearts, so to speak, and say, oh, wow, guess what? Your school's too good. It doesn't show need and persistence and graduation with regular, graduation with rigorous. And then it's kind of an awkward, like, but you know what? We can still, if we get funded and you're still in the target area, we could still serve some of your eligible students because you're in our target area, but I can't have you listed as an official target school. Teresa, I don't know if you speak to that, but I've done that before and I regretted doing that. So I do my homework ahead of time.
Yeah, definitely do the homework first. Even like if you're like before we even talk to the superintendent, we would go ahead and do the data first. And the superintendent may say, "Well, can you add a school?" and that kind of thing. But I mean, and at least we had more. We were empowered to say, "No, there's a potential we won't get funded if we include that school or what have you." So definitely, the data is going to help you really be more empowered to decide which schools should be invited, but also if they reach out to you, it'll help you to be able to, it helps. The data kind of helps you be better able to say no if you have to.
Yes. So vet this ahead of time. But then some stuff you will have to get, but at least if you can show that they have a need in low income first generation students,
Mhm.
also their graduation rate, their college going rate, their college, high school graduation rate, test scores, you can get that through the state website, okay, or the district website, or some of these other websites that you'll see that you can look. It doesn't have to be a state website. It could be a third party website that's looking for this type of information. You need to have those facts before you talk to them. But here's one way, like I said earlier, is that as long as the school is in the target area
Yeah.
and you have room, this is one way to have your cake and eat it too. After you get funded, you could serve students that are eligible from that target school if first you made sure to recruit at your target schools, which target schools by definition are the focus of your services. But notice on your APR for talent search, they always ask you, well, how many students are not being served at your target school? So that lets me know that I can work with non-target school students as long as they are attending schools that are in the target area. So if you find yourself having to backtrack and tell a school, sorry to get you all worked up, but you didn't make the cut, you can tell them, well, you know what, you won't be listed officially as a target school, but you're in the target area. So if we have space available, which we always have, right? Because we're always desperate to recruit, we can designate that we can come here on site to meet and recruit and serve eligible students once a month, but we have to be at our target schools weekly or every 2 weeks, so to speak. So you see, you treat them a little bit differently. You don't want to end up with most of your students at a non-target school that's in the target area. You want to make sure most of them are at the target school. But this is one way to kind of gracefully step out of a situation if you've already invited someone and they are not going to make the cut, so to speak. Okay. Any other questions y'all have regarding that? Good, great question. We got another one. We have a couple of overlapping high schools with another program. Should we flag that or just describe our area confidently? Teresa, I'll speak to this and then let me know what your situation or we have. Okay, this happens a lot when you're in. Before we used to be the only game in town in Fort Worth, and now there's a whole bunch of programs. When you say flag that, I'm wondering if you mean should you step away or do an assessment? I mean, it could be that maybe these people are doing you a favor. Maybe the target schools are so big or there's so many students that you might want to, as much as you can, shrink down or lose a couple of target schools. Um, so that if you can get more students at fewer schools is great. Now you can't go too few, right? Because you need to serve substantially the same number of target schools as before, and substantially has in the past been defined as at least 51% of your current school listing. In Fort Worth, we could do that. We were the only game in town for a while, and we had 17 target schools at one time, high schools, Teresa. And because it was crazy, right? And so we were like, please, more people, because that way we can consolidate and serve fewer students more students at fewer schools. Now, in this case, um, you just I would just describe your target area. You want to act like, you don't want to volunteer that information. Now, there is a question in the needs section where the last question where we usually talk about how there's a lack of services like talent search in the target area. You might not be able to say that, okay? But you could still talk about everything else, but you might not be able to say that there's a lack of these services available. That's the only thing. Teresa, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
I would just say if it's not broken, it's not something necessarily that you have to fix. But if you're finding symptoms like students don't know which program they're in, it's just run amok in the school to where it's just creating confusion. It's something to consider, but that doesn't mean that you have to, change your grant in any way. But, I think that if it's working okay, then I mean you don't know if there's someone else who may be writing that school in. So you just never know who else might be trying to compete in your area and they're writing in the schools that you actually already serve. But like I said, if there's no major confusion happening, students know which program they're in, and there's not enough students to serve. I think the strategy of less schools, the better. But if it's not broke, I don't know that you necessarily have to fix anything when you're writing your proposal.
And you said the key thing, when you're writing it, don't complicate it for the reader.
Hmm.
You don't want to tell them about don't air your dirty laundry with the reader and thinking that you're going to try to, well, see, this is what's going on. And no, no, no. Just, you may not be able to say you're the only game in town. Okay, don't say that, but don't go into detail how you're not the only game in town, right? And the other thing is you never know what can happen. Some of these programs are going to do their budgets and say, no mas, we can't afford y'all. No, we're not going to let you write, believe it or not, right? Times are so crazy. I've heard people have discussions that their colleges won't let them reapply, or they might not do a great proposal. I mean, I hate to wish that on somebody else, but you write, if this is if this is an existing program, you want to make sure you keep it together and that you move forward with it and you don't complicate it and you describe your target area. The only thing is you may not be able to say you're the only game in town. So don't bring it up, avoid it. Luckily, it's not a specific question.
Right.
You can kind of, talk about some other stuff, so to speak. So we've got a question here regarding you're going to have to use national data, perhaps because maybe your schools are doing better than state. I'm just assuming. For comparison to your target high schools, how do I make sure that I'm comparing the right data from census to what is put out by the school or school district? It'll never be quite the same. You're just going to have to try to make a best match. They use their own definitions, and nationally, they might use a different definition. Um, so what you can do, and actually it's not a lot of this, I think there's a couple of questions regarding academics, like specific to talent search, so to speak, about graduation with regular diploma. Okay, I believe there's census data for that. But on the rigorous, I don't think you'll be able to find census data on that. So you're going to have to find national data on that or district level. And it could be that some places, if you have to compare your target schools to just district data or another school district, so be it. And in other tables, maybe you compare yourself to state or national data. What I'm saying is, in a perfect world, yes, it would be great if you could compare yourself, and this is for EOC as well, to the same entity consistently across the board, right? But you can't, because not all these entities carry their national data or have national data and all at the same time using the same definitions. So that's why we always put in our tables, not only, please note, this is the most recent available data for each comparison area, letting the reader know, hey, they're going to be off. They might be off in their timing, so to speak. And then going back to the questions on for specific to the talent search tables on test scores. I don't know if you can get that in the census. You'll have to do that nationally with some sort of standardized test. So you would use, what is, Teresa, that the National Education Statistics website? Gosh, ED something, digest. They've got a lot of great stuff. I can't even think of it right now. It's on all our things. I apologize. It's in the Google Drive where we have our sources that we want to tell you to go to, but National Statistics of Education. They've got a lot of great national data and some state data that I feel in talent search for our target schools, we should use more so or closer related to what the target schools are pulling or the state education agencies. It's more appropriate, I guess, than saying you're going to use census data for some of those academic tables. You're better off going to that. And I don't know if you were able to find it, Teresa. I'll look for it too. It's not that
I'm
my
looking.
schools are Okay, it's not that my schools are doing so well. Um, is it the Eric Digest? It's that my state is doing so poorly. The data is within a point of each other in some measurements, and my schools are higher than the state. Yep. Yep. I mean, that's you know, yeah. See, yeah, I don't know if y'all can see this, but they're ranked 48th in the nation, but this whole state's doing poorly. So that makes perfect sense to compare yourself to the national, but we'll look for that National Education Digest. That is where you want to go to pull your national stats, more so than on the census. Yes, you will have to use census data for the percentage of low-income families in the target area, and also the percentage of individuals living in the target area that have less than a bachelor's degree, also less than a high school diploma. You want to bring it on less than a middle school, bring that on if you can't show that. But, and of course, probably there's about the percentage of folks that do not have a high school diploma, again, to show or have the dropout rate. But for all those other tables, I would go to the other national
Yep,
rates. Were
I
you
have it,
look?
Lisa. It's
Okay,
the National Center for Education Statistics.
there.
Um, and then you also have the National Center for oh, well, at a glance, there's an at a glance version, and then there's a U.S. enrollment rate for recent graduates. So in your the document that you provided, it has multiple sources at the
Okay.
national level as far as helpful resources.
I knew we had it there. Could you plug in just a couple of the websites in the chat if you don't
Sure,
mind?
sure
Oh,
will.
great. But good luck with that. And yes, you make sure that it won't be perfect. The years will be off, but just make sure you state that. You might even say a little opening sentence at the very beginning of your first question. Please note that comparison will be conducted compared to the national statistics, and there would be some variation in the timing. Or you could put it at the bottom of your table if you kind of don't want to bring it up, but also have it there in the source. So they're going to be told to check for the sources. So we're likely not going to have any PE points because as an EOC, we've had substantial progress, but not the 90% or full goal because many directors ago had increased the participant goal without input from the college. Unfortunately, our area has been shrinking in population. We're currently working on all the angles we can think of to work with as many people as possible. So anyway, without these PE points, are we in a bad situation when we write? I'm concerned because of this competition. Well, let me tell you, just being facts are facts here. Math is math. And but I will tell you, I had two SSS clients, Teresa, that had no prior experience points. None at all. And I don't know how this happened. According to their calculations, they shouldn't have any, but they were funded. So I'm thinking either they didn't add up their points themselves correctly or thought they had zero, or the department made a mistake and gave them some points because I don't know how they're not on the funding band.
Mm.
Um, so actually, I take it back. I had another client who they were existing for SSS. They didn't have any PE points, and they were on the funding band. I had another one who told me I didn't see for a fact. So I think they might have had points, but this is the truth of the matter is you're going to be competing as though you're going for brand new funding without any points. And I know that I can tell you that no new talent searches or EOC projects, the cutoff is going to be more than you can score without the PE points. Okay. So that's the way that it works out always. It like this time the cutoff was 113.33. That was the cutoff to get funding. And if you were brand new or had zero PE points, the highest you could score in a perfect proposal was 113. Okay. And you needed to score 113.33. So you're in yes, you're in a tough situation, but it's not impossible. You could make it onto the funding band. And then duke it out for that. But you're gonna have to score not only a perfect proposal, and that's gonna have to be, you have to score above the cutoff without any PE points. And so possibly just, I'm just being blunt, a best case scenario is you're gonna end up on the funding band, but you probably won't get funded outright, even if you score a perfect proposal. The same thing goes for talent search. That's why right now, but you still have, right? You have until August 31st to get your numbers. If you just get your numbers, and don't even bother with the objectives, right? Or is this the last year? Are they still, this is their last year to get points, right? This is your last year. You're going to be starting your last year in September. So if you just get your points, I mean, if you just serve your, how many people you have to serve. And for EOC, what I love about EOC is I can meet someone, and if they're over the age of 24, which most of these are, they can be selected and served all at the same time. As long as I give them 2 services, I can have a folder ready with services. Oh, you're a high school grad, no post. Here, I've got a folder just for you right here. If you're a college dropout, here, I've got a packet, just for you. You've been served. And they fill out the application. Okay, get your numbers. Talent Search, do whatever you can to get your numbers. You still have, anyway, if you get your numbers and don't worry about the objectives, you get at least 3 points. 3 precious points at the most, divided by, whatever, but at least you get something. So you still have a chance to get those points. If you don't hit, enough to get any points this year, hopefully you had them in the past. So now's the time, everybody, right now, I would encourage you all to dust off your current PE points and really put an emphasis on recruitment. Say, you know what? Don't worry about the objectives this year. Let's just get our numbers. Get our numbers so at least we get 3 points added to this year. Okay, it's something. But just, putting it blunt, Teresa, I don't know how else to put it. Just keeping it real. That's why you go for PE points. That's why PE points count so much in all the trio programs, but they've always been critical. The most, I mean, now all the trio programs are seeing how important getting their PE points are. Okay, but it's always been this way for EOC and Talent Search for the longest time. It's just now spilling over to SSS. It wasn't that big of a deal. And just, we've always had to score perfect scores the last 20 years in Talent Search or EOC. Not so in the other programs. This is the first time SSS has had perfect proposals that aren't on the funding list, the initial one, because, the cutoff was so high. And it's just going to get, tighter. What do you think, Teresa, about that?
Yeah, I agree totally. Yeah, it's always, I mean, yeah, it's always been important for Talent Search and EOC and Upper Bound. Yeah.
Someone said I only get PE points for this year. That means 5 points to help me. How worried should I be? Hey, well, you can spend a lot of time worrying and it's not going to help anything. But if you go ahead and get your 5 points, I would be ecstatic with 5 points going in compared to 0. That 5 points could be $1 million change plus. I'm ecstatic just to get the 3. Give me 3 points. I can work with 3 points. Okay. Right. But no points. Like it, honestly, Teresa, if a client came up to me and said, right now, I have no points, will you help me write this proposal? I'm like, let me tell you, I don't know. I mean, okay, but I'll take your money, but I cannot guarantee it's going to be funded at all. I probably won't be. It won't get funded initially. At best, you can be placed on the band, and I don't know how much money they have to fund down the slate. But if you have only 5 points, that's wonderful. Not great. You'd want to have 15, but 5 points, I'll take it any day.
Every point counts.
Every point counts. So that's it's not great. I don't want you like, oh, but hey, it's what it is. And you still have time to improve upon it. You still have time. If you get your numbers, maybe get another 3 points. Of course, they divide it by 3, but that's the thing. Any other questions, y'all? We still have some time left. I know you wanted to talk about the needs section. So what do you want to talk about the needs section? Needs section. You should be deep into getting a spreadsheet together. Like Teresa mentioned, we have free resources in the Google Drive of where you might want to start looking. It takes the longest to get that. It takes the longest to collect. You got to go back and forth, back and forth. And if you're an existing program and you've been around there, your project has been there quite a while, it's actually sometimes harder to show the need because you guys have done such a great job that now, the need is harder. So you need to work harder to show the need. Is it overkill to include quotes from both local employers and school leaders in the needs section? No, not at all. In fact, I remember Donna here on our team always told me that was the most interesting part of the proposal was hearing what people were saying about the reasons why, why are there so many low income families in this area? And for EOC, I think it's going to be very important to get local employers and GED leaders to tell you what the situation, or to really get on the reader's side about why this EOC is needed in the area. Because the quantitative this data this time, maybe if it's not compelling, or if you're struggling to show that it's compelling, if you quote like a newspaper report, like a reporter would be trying to get quotes from folks that are there doing the work, getting their assessment, getting their professional um, uh, assessment as to why things are the way they are. A lot of those EOC questions, I mean, yes, you'll be hard pressed maybe for the quantitative, but if you compare the stuff from the Workforce Center, compare it to quotes from local employers and from the GD folks, I think that's going to make that needs section stronger. Okay. That's what I think. Someone put the Florida Department of Education report cards. Oh, sorry about that, Bob comment. That's perfectly fine. So have I always used quotes from target school officials or folks, in the target area? No, I haven't. But I think it's a strength now to do that. I think it breaks up the boring part of the quantitative data and the tables, and I'll actually combined with the quantitative data, the qualitative assessments of people that live there, work there, I think make it interesting, and it, I believe, draws the reader in. And if you draw them in from the very beginning, that's going to be so helpful. Okay, if you tell a story, you know how they always say, tell a story, tell a story. Well, you should use the quantitative data, but also to answer the why, instead of you saying, there's so many low-income families and they face the following, blah, 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 blah. Says who? That's what I always say. Who are you to say? You need to say, according to the GED, the director of the GED program, or according to the Workforce Center person, or so-and-so, the reason why there's so many these low-income families face the following barriers in the target area. You see how much more compelling that is than the writer who's unnamed just is making all these statements that I'm sure are true on the national level. And I'm sure they're true in the target area, but it says who? You have to go ahead. If you want to use that as a source, you need to cite the source, the individual that told you that. Can you use local news articles as a source? All the time, Diane, all the time. In fact, I remember back when we were heavy into newspapers, for a couple of funding cycles with Talent Search there in Fort Worth, Teresa, they did an expose on the real graduation rate, the real dropout rate, because the big thing was that the way the state was calculating it was totally different what was going on. So I latched onto that. I said, they said it, not me. They said this, and I cited that article like crazy, and the quotes that it was good stuff. So that's one example. But yes, cite your source. That they never tell you, and I don't think they're going to do this in the RFP, to tell you, like in some proposals, and I think Teresa has worked on some of these, where they say, oh, and I've only worked on one where the RFP told you can only get your data from these links of sources. I forget what it was. It was for something that I worked with Lori, and I said, oh, she goes, yep, we have to go to this website, and this is the only website we can source that as to show the need. They haven't done that. So just like they don't tell you what areas to compare yourself to in both EOC or Talent Search, traditionally it's comparison to the state and to the national data if you can. like we mentioned earlier, if you find out very quickly, I'm not able to show need, or like, like she said, I can't show a lot of difference. So I'm forced to, compare it to the national data. Okay, fine. Some of us will be comparing to another district or to the district level. But you got to find out as soon as possible. You can't be doing that at the last minute. And also you need to be looking for out for EOC, it's all about these articles or reports for the community. You cannot avoid it in EOC. That's the only way you're going to have compelling data, is to use reports, local reports or state reports or county reports, but nothing really, some of the census, of course, but for a couple of those questions, you're going to have to go there. An article, again, I stick to my 3 years or less. 3 years or less. Okay. And I always cite the source. But yes, if you can, and that article needs to be about the target area. It can't be, about the whole state unless you're serving the whole state. It needs to be tied into what's going on in the target area. Okay. Or a national, but you said local, so that's good. So that's what's telling me that it's probably for the target area. Any other questions, y'all? About 15 minutes left. We've got another one here. Our staffing model includes shared roles across departments, I guess at the college. How much explanation do reviewers really want on that? I would say they don't. No, don't complicate it. All I would say is possibly that my advisor is 50% on talent search, maybe 50% on upward bound, and I focus on what they do for talent search. Sometimes the administrative assistant is split. Okay. The director, now, when the director is split, you want to make sure you tell in the plan of operation on that question on how the project management, or you want to make sure you state that it's already been approved by the department. And you can even cite the regulation that says per this regulation, and we, it's there to say, collaboration, whatever, that good stuff. But then you also want to, for the director, you go into more detail. If the director's not 100%, then who on the grant is 100% that has some limited supervisory or management responsibility when the director's not there? That's how you avoid losing 2 points possibly. I might lose 1 point for not having a full-time director, even though I said it was approved for 1,000,000 years. You never know. Some people squeak by and that reader's like, oh, not a problem. Other people will tell me, every year I write and I tell them I've been split and it's been approved. I still lose a point. Well, I don't want you, so some things you can't help, right? If you're split already and it's been approved, you stay split. Just brace yourself possibly to lose a point, but you don't want to lose 2 points if you don't spell out that someone else on the grant, like a lead advisor. I don't like to, give assistant director titles, just me, but maybe a lead advisor or somebody's going to be a lead advisor. To me means that there's still the majority of their responsibility is helping with identification, recruitment, and serving of participants both in EOC and talent search. But at times, if they're a lead advisor, they have limited supervisory or management duties and responsibilities. And that's how I would make sure with any of my clients where the director is split, that I address those two things, that, hey, it's been approved, the split, and that the other, and I explained their other time, is probably on another TRIO grant or another educational opportunity program. And then I quickly say, but hold on now, we do have, a lead advisor that will serve, have limited supervisory and managerial responsibility when the director's not there. And then I explain the rest of the staff. But if my advisors are split, I may say 50% talent search UB, but it's all about the director, y'all. It's all about the director. And if they're not full-time, who is? Okay. Teresa, I don't know if you have anything to say on that. I don't know if y'all were split. You're good. Okay. EOC. Currently, the grantee assists with advertising of events. Okay. The college or the agency. Should I include minimal advertising cost in my budget? What amount is suggested? How will advertising costs appear to be to the reader? Well, you know what? Here's the good news, because when you do the budget, you shouldn't have any money at all initially in your grant your year one budget and the proposal to even have this discussion. You should be 85% salaries and fringe and 15% for everything else. So for the proposal, I don't even think you're going to have $1 to put toward advertising costs. But in reality, maybe during the year, maybe you're going to have a position open, that kind of thing. When you do, remember, this budget in your proposal is a proposal budget. It'll help the reader see where you plan on using your funds, right? And of course, they assume, and we all assume, we've got this certain amount of money and that everybody's on board from the first day of the project starts. So that's what I'm saying. You don't have any carryover. So you shouldn't have any money to even entertain the thought of putting this in the proposal budget. So there you go. You don't have to worry about that. But once you get funded, and like right now, the SSS folks, I don't think this has happened yet, Teresa, but they're supposed to send them a letter saying, okay, you got your GAN, now we want your real first year budget in 2 weeks. That's when this may come up. Now, keep in mind that in your applicant and community support section that you're working on right now for both EOC and Talent Search, because by the way, that's the other section that takes the longest because it's out of your control, right? So the needs section, out of your control because you have to go to outside sources to try to make it work. Same thing with the applicant and community support section. You can't control everybody there, so it takes some time to basically, cultivate or re-establish relationships and get those MOUs and things going on, right? Well, one of the things at the very front of it, the first half of that, is about everything your college or your agency will give you. Well, if you list there that the college will provide funding or will cover your advertising, like right here as a plus, then depending on how you word it, if you say they're going to cover all our advertising costs, isn't that wonderful? Out of the goodness of their heart, in kind. Oh, isn't that great? Oh, that's great support. Oh, we love that. Well, when you do your budget and you find yourself, oh, so-and-so's not here anymore. I've got some extra money. I can move around. Don't be surprised if you put money into your real budget for advertising costs that it may get kicked out because the program officer looked back to see, oh, wait a minute. Typically, it would be an allowable cost to advertise for your program. But because you said in your proposal that the college would pay for it, now we're not going to allow you to use the funds. So something that initially would be allowable becomes unallowable if your college said they would cover it. Facebook boosts would be an allowable cost. Yes, it would be an allowable cost. But remember, as you guys work on these applicant and community support sections, and if you lay it on thick that your college is going to provide all the computers and all the furniture for your offices, don't be surprised, or cover your evaluations, external evaluations. Don't be surprised if when you end up having money when you during or at the end of year one and you ask for carryover or to move monies around to pay for certain things, you could get questioned later on as to why did you pay for that if the college was supposed to. And a lot of times, I've been there. I said, well, because we ended up having money that we didn't think we would have, and they don't care about that. I said, no, this is not optional. So yes, they could say, nope, you can't use that $5,000 for an evaluation because you said your college would pay for it, even though you haven't, that kind of thing. So you have to be very careful with that. You don't want to over commit in case they can't come through and then you've got to pay for it, so to speak. So anyway, advertising is an allowable cost. Facebook boosts are an allowable cost during the year, yes, typically. But in your grant proposal, I don't think you'll have to worry about talking about it there unless you put in your applicant and community support because your budget won't really permit this. Does anyone have position of lead advisor that would be willing to share in the job description? Good question. And we have a description. I'll make a note and I can upload the qualifications. And they are very similar to advisor, but they specifically list, having some experience, limited experience. So basically, it's not the job description. I mean, you may want to have a job description, but remember in the grant, you don't put job descriptions. In the grant, you put job requirements. But a, a good way to make sure you write up a really good job requirements, because these are qualifications required, is to look at the job description and see what they would be doing and kind of deconstruct it and different point of view so that it matches up, right? So if it says here that they'll be doing X, Y, and Z as a lead advisor, then I need to put, well, they need to have some experience managing or supervising, limited experience should be, the required qualifications, or years of experience with Trio or with this type of programming, could be a minimum job requirement because it's something they're going to have to do. And that's across the board for all the positions, the director position, the advisor position. Look up your current job description, but you're going to write job requirements based off of the job description. Okay, that's the way it kind of works. All right. And I put lead advisor, and I will put that little blurb up there in both Talent Search and EOC to do that. You're welcome. I probably won't get to do it until later this evening. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. Any other questions? We're really excited about our courses that'll be starting hopefully sometime next week. We're going to put a blog post about it, and it'll be these online courses. So you could learn, you could do an hour and a half at a time, concentrate, go back to the needs section. For both EOC and Talent Search, we cover about 3.5 hours on the needs section. Okay. EOC, there's 2 sessions, part 1, needs section, part 1 and part 2, the same thing in Talent Search. So we go into a lot of detail, and I get it. It is so much to sit through back to back. We do give people a break. But there's only so much you can concentrate, and then you want to go back, and then so anyway, we're figuring using the courses, you'll be able to work at your pace and go back and rewind a little bit easier than if you were just to get the recording separate and without a to-do list or without a little quiz just to make sure, you're understanding the content, or you need to go back or whatever. So real excited about this, because I think this will be the best opportunity to kind of learn at your pace and have it stick, rather than to feel like you got hit by a truck because it was just so fast. And sometimes, it's harder to go back and just look at the recordings. So, check it out. For those of you that have already attended our workshops, no extra charge. So maybe, check it out this way. I mean, I will be doing live ones once we get any information solid about the RFP. If they do a draft, I'm going to do a live one, or definitely when the real one comes out, I'm going to do one, if anything, just to cover any updates. If things stayed the same, then, I'm going to stick to the same, maybe do another session on lessons learned from the SSS competition and just go over every single thing that we found out we lost points on from the SSS competition, because by then we should have it ready to go. Someone asked, are these going to end in September? And you know what? It depends. I don't think so. I guess, Donna, we're going to keep on going until it's due. We thought it would be initially we thought it was going to be July. Can you believe it? But then we thought, okay, it'll be done at the end of September. Now I'm thinking it's going to be pushed back to where it's always been all these years, which would be in February for Talent Search and in March for EOC. But I could be wrong. Are the SSS scores posted somewhere? No, they are not. They are individually sent out to folks. We worked on what I think directly about 51 SSS proposals, and we are slowly but surely getting them in. Any of my SSS folks there that worked with us, please, if you don't mind, please, I'm going to send an email, but if you could let us know what you scored. Again, perfect score, no need to send us our scores, but we're trying to collect, find out. If you did not get a perfect score, then I would beg if we could look at your readers' comments so we can learn from it for not only next time, but definitely for the competitions that we're working on right now. We want to see if there's a pattern. We want to, share without any identifying information. We just want to share with folks and ourselves a vested interest here completely to see where folks lost points on during the SSS competition to see if there's a pattern. Okay. And we want to do that as soon as possible. So I guess that takes us to 12:59 p.m. You guys have a great week. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Teresa, so much for joining us, and Leah and Donna, of course, with everything that you all do. Couldn't do it without y'all. And, start writing. If you have any questions, you can always reach us. We also have the group on our website. Look for our blogs. And also, if you've already attended or a workshop, proposal writing workshop, or you're one of our clients, you have access to the internal groups where you can ask questions there as well. Okay. Y'all have a great week. Thank you all for everything, and check our online courses out, please. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording.